The night was cold and the city was broken. Shadows stretched across empty streets, walls burned black, windows broken, air filled with smoke and dust. A young alien girl walked slowly, her body weak, her stomach empty, her arm bleeding from a deep wound. She was hungry, so hungry that her legs shook with every step. Her world had ended days ago, her family gone, her people scattered. No one came to help. She searched for food in the ruins, but only scraps remained. Rotten pieces, dirty water, broken things. Then she saw it. A small pile of food near a trash bin. Old bread, half-eaten meat. Her eyes widened. Her heart beat, faster. But as she ran to grab it, a wild dog jumped out from the shadows, teeth sharp, eyes glowing, fur dirty and rough. The dog growled. She froze. Then she reached for the bread anyway. The dog attacked, its jaws snapping near her face. She fought with all her strength, using her weak hands, kicking, pushing, but the dog bit her arm, tearing the wound wider. She screamed, the sound echoing through the empty street, but no one came. Her blood dripped on the stones, her body shaking. The dog pulled harder, fighting her for every bite of food. Her eyes filled with tears, she thought, "Is this how I die? For scraps?" At last, with one last push, she kicked the dog away. It ran back into the shadows, carrying some meat in its mouth. She fell to her knees, holding her wound, breathing hard. She had only a small piece of bread in her hand, dirty and wet. But she held it like treasure. Her vision blurred, pain filled her body. She leaned against a broken wall, slowly eating the bread, chewing even when it tasted like dust. Every bite kept her alive. But she felt her strength fading. The streets were silent. Only the sound of her breathing and the distant cry of other creatures in the night. She curled up on the ground, her body shaking from cold and fear. Her eyes grew heavy. She thought maybe she should sleep. Maybe she would not wake again. But then, footsteps, slow. Heavy footsteps echoed in the street. Her heart jumped. Fear gripped her. Maybe raiders. Maybe worse than the dog. She tried to crawl away, but her body was too weak. The shadow grew taller. A figure appeared. It was not an alien, not one of her people. It was a human. She had heard of humans, dangerous, strong, never to be trusted. Her people always warned her. Humans only take. Humans never give. Her weak heart pounded faster. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The human stopped in front of her, looking down. His face was hard, his clothes torn, a weapon on his back. For a moment, she thought he would leave, or worse, take her last piece of bread, but instead he bent down slowly, carefully. He opened a small bag, pulled out a cloth and a small bottle. She flinched as he touched her arm, but his hands were gentle. The sting of medicine burned, but then warmth spread through her wound. The human wrapped her arm with clean bandages, tight but careful. Then, he gave her something, a small pack of food, soft bread, real meat. Her eyes widened, her hands shook. No one had ever given her food before, not since the fall. She looked up at him, confused, afraid but also filled with hope. The human said nothing, only watched her eat. His eyes were sharp, full of old pain, but also something else. Kindness. For the first time in many days, the alien girl felt safe, even if only for a moment. She ate slowly, afraid it was a dream, but the bandage on her arm and the food in her hand told her this was real. And as the night grew darker, she wondered, why would a human help me? What does he want? But she was too tired to think more. Her eyes closed, her body weak but her heart a little stronger. And beside her the human kept watch, silent in the shadows. The city was still broken, the night still full of danger. But something had changed. A new story had begun. The alien girl opened her eyes to silence. Her first thought was fear. Her second was hunger. She moved her arm and felt cloth around the wound. Bandages, clean, tight, not her own. Her heart beat faster. She looked around, ready to run. But her body was weak. The place was dark. A broken room with cracked walls and a roof half gone. Dust fell from above. The air was cold. But inside the room, a small fire burned. Beside the fire sat the human. The same one who had saved her. He was sharpening a knife, slow, careful. Each sound of metal against stone sharp in her ears. She froze, fear growing inside her. She remembered the warnings. Humans are dangerous. Humans will trick you. She wondered if she had made a mistake. By eating his food, maybe this was a trap. Maybe now he would demand something back. The human noticed her movement. His eyes lifted, meeting hers. For a moment, neither spoke, the silence heavy. Then he reached to his side, pulling out a small bag. He held it out to her, slow, calm, not coming closer. She hesitated, her body trembling, but hunger was stronger than fear. She reached out with shaking hands, took the bag and opened it. Inside was food again, bread, dried fruit, a little meat. Her stomach cried out. She ate quickly, too quickly, choking on the first bite. The human's eyes softened. He spoke in simple words, his voice low and slow. Eat, slow, safe. She did not understand all the words, but she felt the meaning. He was not angry, not threatening, only watching her with steady eyes. She ate slower and her heart calmed a little. The fire crackled. Outside the night wind howled. In the distance came the sound of something moving. A creature. Maybe the dog. Maybe worse, the human stood and checked the door, then sat again, always alert. His movements were sharp, trained, like someone who had lived many nights in danger. The girl studied him in secret. His clothes were worn, full of cuts and stains. His face was strong but tired, eyes holding shadows of old battles. He looked like someone who had lost much, maybe more than her, but why help her? Why risk his food, his medicine, his time? She could not understand. The human spoke again, pointing to her arm. Better now, he said slowly, his words broken but clear. She touched the bandage, nodded weakly. Her voice was small. Why, help? He did not answer at first, only stared into the fire. Then he said softly, because no one helped me. The words hung in the air, heavy and sad. The girl lowered her eyes, not knowing what to say. For a moment she almost felt his pain as if it was her own. She had lost everything too. She understood loneliness. They sat in silence, the fire warming their faces. The girl ate the last piece of bread, feeling strength return, but her fear did not leave. It sat in her chest, whispering, what if he changes his mind? What if he betrays you? The human broke the silence again, his voice low. You? Safe here. He pointed to the ground, then to her, then back to the fire. His meaning was clear. She could rest. She was safe for now. Her eyes filled with tears, not of pain, but of something else, hope, small but real. She had not felt it since the fall of her home, since the night she lost her family. Now, because of this human, she felt it again. The fire grew smaller. The human added wood. He leaned back against the wall, his knife still in hand. The girl curled up on the floor, wrapping her thin arms around herself. Her body relaxed for the first time in many days, but sleep did not come easily. She watched him through half-closed eyes. Every movement, every breath, she studied him. The sharp lines of his face, the scars on his hands, the way his eyes never fully closed. He was not like the monsters outside. He was not like the raiders or the gangs. He was something different, dangerous, yes, but not cruel, strange. So strange. Her eyes finally closed, her body too weak to resist. The last thing she heard was the soft scrape of his knife and the crack of fire. And for the first time in a long time, she did not dream of hunger or fear. She dreamed of food, warmth, and a strange kindness. The night was long, but morning did not bring safety. The alien girl opened her eyes slowly, her body sore but alive. The fire was gone, only ashes left, and the human was already moving, packing his bag, checking his weapons. She sat up, confused, afraid, wondering if he would leave her behind. The human looked at her, his face calm but serious. He pointed to the door, then made a walking sign with his hand. Move, he said, his voice low. She understood. They could not stay. Not here. Not in this broken room. Fear filled her chest. The city outside was death. She remembered the dog, the gangs, the shadows. Her body shook, but the human did not wait. He opened the door and stepped into the ruined street. After a long breath, she followed, limping on weak legs. The city looked worse in the daylight. Buildings stood like skeletons. Black smoke rose in the distance. The wind carried the smell of fire, rot, and blood. Every corner looked dangerous, every shadow alive with threat. The human walked steady, eyes scanning the streets. He moved like someone who knew danger was always near, his hand never far from the weapon on his back. The girl stayed close, her small steps quick, her heart racing. A sound broke the silence. Footsteps, but not theirs. The human stopped, raised, a hand for her to stay still. They pressed against a wall, holding their breath. Voices came, rough and angry. Two men walked into the street. Not aliens, not monsters, but humans like him. They carried guns, their faces cruel, their eyes searching. The girl's heart froze. She wanted to scream, but the human's hand pressed gently on her arm, telling her to be silent. The men passed, talking about food, about hunting, about killing. Their words were heavy, full of hate. The girl trembled, thinking, are these the true humans? But beside her, the man stayed calm, his eyes sharp, waiting until the danger was gone. When the street was empty again, he led her forward, her body weak, but fear pushed her to keep moving. Every sound made her jump. The flap of birds, the crash of glass, the whistle of wind through broken walls. The human never stopped watching, always one step ahead. As the sun rose higher, they reached a place where the street narrowed. A burned car blocked the way, and broken bricks made the ground hard to cross. The girl tried to climb but stumbled, her wound still painful. The human pulled her up with one strong hand, not speaking, just moving forward. Then came the danger. From the shadows, a group stepped out. 3 figures, their faces covered, weapons in their hands, raiders, hungry, violent, ready to kill for scraps. The girl gasped, her body froze. The human pushed her behind him, his hand pulling the weapon from his back. Steel glinted in the sun, his eyes dark and steady. The raiders laughed, thinking they had found easy prey. But the human did not laugh. He moved like a storm. The fight was fast, brutal. One raider rushed forward, but the human struck first, his knife cutting deep. The second raised a gun, but the human threw a stone so hard it hit the man's head, sending him crashing down. The third ran back into the shadows, leaving his friends to bleed. The girl stood frozen, eyes wide, her heart racing. She had seen death before, but not like this. The human fought with skill, with rage, but also with control. He did not kill for fun. He killed to survive, to protect. When it was over, he wiped the blood from his blade. He did not smile, did not speak, only looked at her with steady eyes. For the first time, she did not feel fear in his gaze. She felt safety, strong and unbreakable. They moved again, leaving the bodies behind. The streets grew darker, the buildings taller, the air colder. The girl whispered softly, almost too quiet to hear. Why stay with me? I slow you down. The human looked at her, his face unreadable. He shook his head, then spoke. No. Together. She did not understand fully, but she felt the meaning. Not alone. Not anymore. For the first time since the fall of her world, she felt she was not just surviving, she was living step by step beside him. As night returned, they found shelter in another ruined house. The human lit a small fire, his knife beside him, his eyes always alert. The girl sat close, her arm aching, her body tired. She thought about the raiders, the fight, the danger. She thought about him, a human who fought not just for himself, but for her. A human who did not run, who did not betray. Strange, so strange. Outside, the city whispered with threats, but inside, near the fire, she felt a spark of something new. Trust, small, but real. The dangerous streets were still waiting, but she was no longer alone. The fire burned low in the ruined house. Shadows danced on the broken walls, making the place look alive. The alien girl sat near the warmth, her eyes half closed, her body weak, but her mind restless. Sleep would not come, not with so many questions inside her. The human sat across from her, his knife in his hand, slowly turning it in the light. His eyes were sharp, always scanning, always listening. He looked like stone, strong, silent, unmoving. But the girl felt there was something hidden behind that silence. She whispered softly, "Who are you?" Her voice was small, almost lost in the crackle of fire. The human looked up, his eyes catching hers. For a moment, he said nothing, and she thought he would ignore her. Then he spoke, his words slow, broken, but heavy with meaning. "No one." The answer sent a chill through her. No one? A man with such strength, such scars, could not be no one. She wanted to ask more, but fear held her tongue. Outside, the city groaned in the night, the wind carrying distant screams. The girl pulled her thin cloak tighter, shivering, she thought, about the warnings from her people. Never trust a human, they lie, they betray, they only care for themselves. She looked at him again, at the bandages on her arm, at the food he had given. Her heart argued with her mind. He had saved her, he had fought for her, but what did he want in return? The human spoke again, his eyes still on the fire. "You think I am danger?" His voice was flat, but his words cut deep. She looked down, ashamed, unable to answer. He continued, "Maybe true once." His hand touched the scar across his face, old and deep. He paused, as if fighting with the past. Inside him, finally, he said, "I help. Before, many times. They left me, betrayed me." The girl's eyes widened. Betrayed, the word echoed in her heart. She knew betrayal too, when her own people ran, when no one stayed. Her breath caught. She whispered, "I was left too." The human looked at her then, really looked. For the first time she saw pain in his eyes, not just hardness. Two lost souls broken by different worlds, yet the same in their wounds. The silence between them felt different now, heavy but shared. He spoke again, his words like stones falling. "Trust, dangerous, but alone. Worse." She nodded slowly, her heart beating fast. Trust was dangerous, yes, but so was fear. The fire burned lower, the shadows grew darker. The girl asked softly, "Why? Help me, if trust so dangerous?" The human's jaw tightened, his eyes on the floor. Finally, he whispered, almost too low to hear, "Because I do not want to be monster." Her chest tightened, her throat dry. A human who feared becoming a monster. She never thought she would hear such words. Maybe he was not like the others. Maybe he was different. Suddenly, a noise outside cut their moment. A crash, then footsteps, heavy and many. The human rose at once, weapon ready, his eyes sharp again. The girl froze, fear rising in her chest. Voices shouted outside, raiders searching, hungry for blood. The human motioned her to be silent. They both pressed against the wall, listening. The sound of boots grew closer, the firelight flickering as danger crept in. The girl's heart pounded, her breath shallow. She thought, "If they find us, we die." But the human stood steady, calm, his hand gripping his blade. In his silence, she felt strength. The raiders passed, their voices fading into the night. The human did not move until the sound was gone. Only then did he lower his weapon. His body, relaxing slightly, the girl let out a breath she did not know she was holding. She looked at him again, her fear still there, but mixed now with something else. Respect, maybe even trust. She whispered, "You fight for me. Why?" He met her eyes, his voice quiet. "Because you fight to live same as me." The words burned into her heart. She realized then, he did not see her as weak. He saw her as someone like him, struggling, surviving, refusing to give up. In that moment, she felt something change inside her. Not all humans were monsters, not all kindness was a trick. Maybe, just maybe, she could believe in him. even if it meant risking betrayal again. The fire burned out, leaving only embers. The girl closed her eyes, not from fear this time, but from exhaustion. Beside her, the human kept watch, his eyes never closing, his blade never far. And in the silence of the ruined city, two broken souls shared a secret, the secret that they were no longer alone. The city was never quiet for long. Dawn came with smoke in the sky and the sound of engines far away. The alien girl opened her eyes to the heavy air, her heart already uneasy. The human stood at the doorway, watching the street, his face harder. Then stone, she crawled closer, her voice small. "What is it?" He did not answer with words at first, only lifted a hand for silence. Then he spoke, his voice low. "Raiders. Many." Her stomach turned cold. She had seen raiders before, but never this close, never this loud. The roar of engines grew, the crack of metal and boots echoing between the ruins. The enemy was moving through the city like fire, searching, hunting, destroying. The human packed quickly, his movements sharp, no wasted motion. He threw dirt on the fire, grabbed his weapon, then looked at her. "Move," he ordered. She nodded, her legs shaking, but she followed. They slipped into the narrow streets, broken walls on both sides. Every corner was filled with danger. Every shadow seemed alive. The girl's breath was loud in her ears, her wound burning with pain. The human moved ahead, his eyes scanning, his steps silent. Then, the sound came, voices shouting. The clatter of metal, too close, too many. The human pulled her into a dark alley, pressing her against the wall. He placed a finger on his lips, telling her to stay silent. The raiders passed, 5 men, armed with rifles, their faces cruel. They laughed as they dragged a prisoner behind them, a young alien boy. He cried for help, but they only hit him harder. The girl's heart broke. She wanted to scream, but the human's hand held her still. His eyes told her the truth. If they moved now, both would die. Tears filled her eyes, but she stayed quiet. The raiders disappeared into the street ahead, their voices fading. Only then did the human release her arm. They moved again, faster now, slipping through holes in walls, climbing over broken cars. But the enemy was everywhere, like a net tightening. Explosions shook the ground, fire spread across the ruins. The girl stumbled, coughing on smoke, but the human pulled her forward, never letting go. Then they were seen. A raider shouted, raising his gun. Bullets ripped through the air, hitting stone and metal, sparks flying. The human shoved her down, returning fire with deadly precision. The fight was chaos. One raider fell, another ducked behind a wall. The girl crawled to safety, her heart pounding, her ears ringing. She watched the human move like a predator, fast, precise. His every strike sure, but there were too many. More. Raiders poured into the street, shouting, firing, surrounding them. The human grabbed her hand, dragging her into a broken building. They crashed through the doorway as bullets shattered the walls. Inside, dust filled the air. The floor cracked under their weight. The girl coughed, clutching her wound, her eyes wild with fear. The human blocked the door with debris, his chest rising fast. For the first time she saw strain in his face. "They hunt us," he said, his voice rough. "Why?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He shook his head. "Not you. Me." Her heart froze. So he was the reason, the danger, the hunted one. And yet without him, she would already be dead. Fear battled trust inside her, tearing her in two. The raiders shouted outside, kicking doors, searching. The human looked at her, his eyes steady. "You run if they take me," he said. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, not leave." For a moment something broke in his eyes, something soft. But the moment ended with the crash of wood as raiders forced their way inside. The human raised his weapon, his voice like thunder. "Stay behind me." The battle exploded. Bullets tore through the air, blades clashed, shouts filled the room. The girl ducked, covering her head, the sound shaking her bones. But through it all, she saw him. The human fighting like a storm, unstoppable, furious, alive. One raider after another fell, but still they came. The girl grabbed a broken pipe, her hands shaking. When a raider lunged at her, she swung with all her strength. The pipe cracked against his head, dropping him to the floor. Her breath came. In sharp gasps, her arms shaking. She had never killed before, but she was still alive. The human saw her, nodded once, a look of respect in his eyes. Then he turned back to the fight. Blood on his blade, fire in his hands. At last, silence returned, broken only by the groans of the wounded. The room was painted with smoke and blood, bodies on the floor. The girl leaned against the wall, shaking, her chest burning with fear and pride. The human stood in the middle, his body wounded, his eyes still sharp. They had survived, but the truth was clear. The enemy would not stop. They were not hunting scraps, not hunting the weak, they were hunting him, and now, because she stayed with him, they were hunting her too. The city smelled of smoke and blood. The alien girl sat against a broken wall, her hands shaking, her heart beating too fast. Her body still felt the weight of the fight, the raiders' screams, the sound of weapons. Her eyes kept looking at the human who now stood at the doorway, breathing heavy but steady. His arm was cut, blood dripping, but he did not slow. He pressed cloth to the wound, tied it with rope, then lifted his weapon again. His eyes searched the street like a hawk searching the sky. Always watching, always ready. She whispered, "They will come back." Her voice was soft but full of fear. The human nodded, his face hard. "Yes, more will come." Silence filled the ruined room, broken only by the crack of fire outside. The girl felt cold, even near the flames. Her thoughts were heavy, her chest tight. They could not survive another attack like the last, not against so many. The human turned to her, his voice calm but sharp. "We run tonight, mountains. Mountains far away beyond the ruined city. A place where the raiders would not follow. A place where maybe there was safety." Her heart wanted to believe, but her mind screamed no. She shook her head, her voice trembling. "Run. They will follow. They will never stop." Her hands clenched into fists, her eyes burning. "No, we fight." The human looked at her, silent, his eyes dark, unreadable. Then he said slowly, "Fight means death." She raised her head, her voice stronger now. "Run also means death, but slower." The human frowned, his jaw tight. He looked away, out into the street, his silence heavy. The girl felt her heart pounding, her words spilling without fear. "You saved me. You gave me food, you bandaged my wound, but if we always run, then we are still prey. Always prey." Her breath shook, but she kept speaking. "I do not want to be prey, not anymore. I want to stand, to fight, even if I fall." The fire in her voice filled the room, stronger than her weak body. The human stared at her, and for the first time she saw surprise in his eyes. He said nothing for a long time. Then slowly, he nodded. "You fight. Small, weak, but heart strong." His words were not soft, but they carried respect. The girl's chest rose with pride, even through her fear. For the first time, someone saw her not as broken, not as helpless, but as someone who could stand. The human turned away, walking into the shadows of the ruined house. He pulled a hidden bag from the floor, filled with tools, metal, strange devices. He laid them on the ground, his hands moving fast. Traps, weapons, firebombs, ropes, sharp steel. The girl's eyes widened. "You planned this?" she asked. The human's lips curved, not a smile but close. "Always plan. Escape or fight, both." Together they worked. The girl carried stones, wood, broken glass. The human built traps with skill, placing wires, sharpening blades. Every corner of the building became a weapon. The sun fell. Darkness rose. The city grew silent again, but silence meant danger, not safety. The girl's hands trembled as she tied ropes, her body aching. The human placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "Fear good," he said, his voice low. "Fear keeps you alive." She nodded, swallowing her fear. Her heart burned with new fire. For the first time, she was not waiting to be saved. She was preparing to fight back. Hours passed. The traps set. The weapons ready. They sat near the broken window, watching the night. The human sharpened his blade. The girl held the pipe she had used before, her knuckles white but her eyes steady. She whispered, "If we fall together." The human looked at her, his eyes soft for the first time. Yes, together. The night grew colder. The sound of engines returned. Lights moved in the distance. Voices shouted. The raiders were coming. Louder. Closer. Many of them. The girl's heart raced, sweat on her skin, but she did not move. The human stood, his shadow tall against the wall. His voice was calm, like the edge of a blade. "This is where we stand." The girl rose beside him, weak but unbroken. Her body trembled, but her spirit burned. The enemy was coming, the traps were ready, the fire waiting, and for the first time she did not feel like prey. She felt like a fighter. The city held its breath. The sound of engines grew louder, closer. The enemy filled the streets, their laughter cruel, their weapons ready. But inside the broken house, two figures waited, side by side, the human and the alien girl. No longer running, no longer hiding, ready to face death, ready to fight, ready to stand. The night was heavy with smoke. Engines roared in the distance. Voices rose, metal clashed against stone. The raiders were coming, many of them, louder than thunder. The alien girl's hands trembled on the pipe she held, but her eyes were steady. Beside her stood the human, his blade sharp, his face calm. He checked the traps one last time. Wires stretched across the floor, bottles filled with fire waiting to fall. He looked at her, his voice low. "Stay close, no fear now." Her heart pounded, fear and courage fighting inside her chest. She whispered back, "Together." He nodded once, then turned to the window, watching as shadows filled the street. Dozens of raiders moved closer, their weapons ready, their voices cruel. The girl felt her body shrink under the sound. So many enemies, so strong. But then she looked at the human, standing tall, unshaken, and her fear became fire. The first raider reached the door, kicking it open with a crash. The trap snapped, a wire pulled, and a spike swung down. The man screamed as metal tore into him, falling to the ground. The others shouted, raising their guns. The human moved first, throwing a bottle of fire. It exploded in the doorway, flames rising, smoke choking the air. The raiders stumbled back, coughing, but more pushed forward. Their shadows filled the room, their bullets tearing into the walls. The girl swung her pipe, hitting the first raider who came too close. Her arms shook, her ears rang, but she stood her ground. The human fought like a storm, blade flashing, his movements sharp and deadly. One by one, enemies fell, but still they came. The room turned into chaos. Fire spread across the floor, glass shattered, bodies fell. The girl's arm bled again. Her breath came in gasps, but she kept fighting. Every swing of her pipe was for survival. Every step forward a choice not to fall. A raider grabbed her from behind, his knife against her throat. She cried out, but before the blade could cut, the human's weapon struck. The raider dropped, his body falling heavy. The girl gasped for air, her eyes wide. "You saved me." "Again," she whispered. The human's eyes burned. "We save each other." The battle raged on. The raiders pushed harder, their numbers endless. The traps fell one by one, ropes snapping, firebombs gone. The human's body bled from cuts, his strength slowing. The girl saw it, fear striking her heart. He could not last forever, not against so many. She screamed, her voice raw. "Enough, leave us." But the raiders only laughed. One shouted, "The man dies tonight." The girl too. Her stomach twisted, her breath sharp. She thought of her family, of hunger, of fighting the dog for scraps. She thought of dying alone. No, not tonight. She grabbed a fallen weapon, a small gun heavy in her hands. Her fingers shook, but she aimed at the nearest raider. The shot exploded, the man dropped. Silence for a second. The human looked at her, his eyes wide. Her hands shook, but she met his gaze. "I fight too," she said, her voice strong. For a moment, something new shone in his eyes. Pride. They stood back to back, fighting together. The girl with her stolen weapon, the human with his blade. The raiders shouted, falling one by one. The fire grew, smoke filling the air. At last, the survivors of the enemy turned. They dragged their wounded, shouting curses, disappearing into the night. The city grew quiet again, the fire crackling, the wind howling through broken walls. The battle was over. The girl dropped the weapon, her body shaking, her breath ragged. She looked around, the floor covered with smoke and blood. Her heart pounded. With disbelief, they had survived against all odds. They had survived. The human sat against the wall, his chest rising and falling heavy. Blood stained his arm, his face, his clothes. But his eyes were still sharp, still alive. The girl crawled. To him, tears in her eyes. "You did not leave me," she whispered. He shook his head slowly, his voice rough. "No, never." She pressed her small hand over his, her body trembling. "Before you, I fought dogs for scraps. I thought I would die forgotten." Her tears fell, but her voice was steady. "But you gave me food, you gave me bandages, you gave me hope." The human's jaw tightened, his eyes dark. "You gave me reason," he whispered. They sat in silence, the ruined city around them, but the silence was not empty. It was full of something new, not just survival, not just fear, but trust, respect, even family. Two souls broken by war, bound by kindness. And battle, no longer alone, no longer prey. The girl looked at the fire as it died down. The night was still dangerous, tomorrow still unknown. But she was not afraid anymore, because she was not fighting for scraps anymore. She was fighting for life, for him and for herself, and together they would stand whatever came next.